Morning everybody. It's Easter Monday, and we've been away actually for the week with the family down in Wales, the Wye Valley. Had a wonderful week, sort of walking the dog, etc. Got back now, and I've managed to find a sneaky match, haven't I, on the weekend. So just before we go back to work tomorrow, Easter Monday, and we're off to Todber Manor. I'm going to fish Hillview, and I've not fished that lake for about 3 years, so I'm really looking forward to this. Going to be quite interesting actually, because apart from the fact of not having fished it, Todber are a little bit sort of victims of their own success. I imagine most of you have heard of Todber Manor, because it's absolutely awesome. Everything about the place, from the breakfasts to just the on-site facilities, really, a pole alley, all the tackle and kit you can think of, and the fisheries. And of course they've got the sort of carp specimen side as well, where they got some absolutely fantastic fish to catch. And the Todber Match Lakes themselves, Hillview and so on the complex, are, as I say, a bit of a sort of victims of their own success, really. The weights were so colossal, a lot of people dropped off going. So they've took a certain amount of fish out. Now how many or tonnage I don't know, but I've heard it's a lot. So it is going to be interesting. I don't really know what the stocking is. I still think we're going to catch loads of fish. I don't think we're going to need 800 pounds to win, thank goodness, because I don't think my back could cope with it. But I'm hoping, I just don't know. But the match itself anyway is a pairs match. I'm with Mark Harper, absolute legend. Mark's going to be fishing for silvers on Ash Lake, and that's how it is. One person's fishing for silvers, the other one's fishing for carp on Hillview. So we're on Hillview fishing for carp. Not been for 3 years, as I say. Really looking forward to it. I know I'm going to get some bites, aren't I? It's Todber Manor. You know, I'm gonna catch some fish, which is nice, and I'm hoping to catch short, which would be great for you guys, because I can set up the camera and you can see the float and everything else, and hopefully you'll see it go under. So fingers crossed for bungo. Let's get on over there and have one of those breakfasts. See you in a bit. So the bites are slowed a little bit, so we've changed our lighter strung out rig now, and I find this was quite effective 3 years ago when I used to come. We started on a 4x14 with all the bulk pushed together and just straight above a 4-inch hook length. Um, as Mark Harper, my partner today, told me that he had this peg last week and won the match for £250, and that's exactly what he did. But I don't know if the conditions were the same or not. But I just feel with it being so flat, they're backing away. Um, so I'm just going to try this sort of strung out rig and see if we can catch one or two doing this. This rig's a 3B10 float now, and it's worked for me in the past, as I said. Um, so let's see how the day unfolds, really. You can see it's still sort of shotting up there. Nice slow drop. So this rig isn't really for bagging like the other rig, but it can winkle a few extra fish out when they go a bit fickle. And sometimes just changing presentation, even on the same line, can catch you extra fish. And I found that here in the past, I've sort of used to set up 3 rigs for the one line and just keep changing rigs, just dropping that pellet in a different way, presenting it in a different way, really. This fish grabbed that slow falling pellet then before it got to the bottom nut. So I'm wondering now if I'm feeding enough to keep them down, um, or am I feeding too much that they're back, shying away a bit, or it's just taking me longer to get a bite because there's too much feed there. All these little things you have to sort of gauge. Also, we have to remember we're not sure on the stocking now either, so we've got to sort of fathom it out. At the moment, though, to keep it very simple for myself, I'm fishing a 6 mil coppin, feeding, sorry, 6 mil coppins, and I'm either fishing a 6 mil coppin in the band or a small 8 mil screttin, which is just then a little bit bigger than the 6 mil coppins. So it stands out a little bit. Sometimes that works. I'm pleased to see this slight breeze now blowing in. That's going to help fishing a little bit. But yeah, just keeping with sixes and things, just keeping it real simple for myself. As I say, not been here for quite a long time, and you just simplicity always, isn't it? So same bait, just different presentations. Sadly, that short line died quite quickly, quicker than we liked. So I did put up another rig at the start, and that was just to fish the bottom of the slope, out off the bottom of the slope a little bit on the sort of out there on the deck, if you like. It's about a foot deeper, and we're just throwing a few pellets in there. So the format at the moment, just to keep fish coming, is as you can see there, we flick it as we ship out and get to the end of our short four. We flick a few pellets in on that short line because we're hoping that's going to come good again, and then we go out on the long one, as you can see there, and chuck a few pellets in. So things we're doing badly at the moment because we're at a practice here, and little things you forget is due to lack of practice, I'm striking way too hard. As you've seen, you get a lot of liners and things. I'm lifting the too high, and then I'm having to lower the whole rig down in the water again. And then my pellet throwing is quite poor as well. I used to be able to group it quite well, either right on my float or, is often the case, just behind your float, which helps avoid foul hooking. So little things to work on there already. And we're lifting then a little bit better. I'm getting little touches from liners, and I'm lifting in case there's a bite on that pellet. And if not, I can just drop it in those sort of 2 inches I lifted. So it's got a little bit better already. So then it's just repeat the process. And this time I've put my stopwatch on and I'm just watching the time now. From the moment I unhooked that last fish to putting a pellet on in the band, my throwing's getting a little bit better, isn't it? Although I should still be throwing behind the float. You know, my grouping's getting better though. See those little lifts? I'm probably being a bit critical of myself, but you're just looking on how you can improve things all the time, aren't you, as a match angler? And then, like I say, so hold the pole, feed, then bring the pole back to land your fish. A few on the short line. That's, and that fish kicked quite a bit compared to some of the others, didn't it? So, but I think the whole process took around 2 minutes. Now, a little bit under 2 minutes, but obviously it's not going to stay that fast. But if it was to stay that fast and we're on the longer line, you'd have to think to yourself, well, 2 minutes for a fish, that's 60, that's 30 fish an hour, isn't it? It's a lot, mind. Like I say, you know, you get peaks and troughs, but at the start, the first hour, you'd certainly hope to do that. Okay, so that short line was good for 3 or 4 fish, and then we had to go long again. So I'm thinking already about the rhythm of my match at the moment, and I'm thinking, right, I can come in on that shorter line, catch three, then I got to go longer. Saves me wasting any time after catching those three. And the rigs we're using today are 0.20 mainline and 0.18 hook length, size 16XS Guru hook, Malman Rubes, 4x14s and 4x12s. Then we got our little 3x10 strung out thing, haven't we? Floats are carbon stemmed because wire are never going to take this amount of pressure. They're going to bend. And the silicone rubbers on those on the carbon stems as well is quite thick. Again, so as the line doesn't cut through it, and it can take the pressure. Because you're catching a lot of fish. Some fish heavier than what I am, but for me it's about balance tackle, and I'm not taking that long to get them in, am I? So it suits me. So that 0.20 mainline, like I was saying, I crimp shot on that. I don't use stubs or stops because they'll move around and then you've got to reposition them and you're wasting time. And that 0.20 also can take quite a bit of stick over that landing net when you're landing fish. So it's a sort of compromise, if you like, isn't it? But the shots I use do tend to be positives, eights and nines, nothing smaller. There are people who are very good at this style of fishing. They come here a lot and are extremely good at it. It's far from what some people think who don't come here think it's sort of, hook and pull hard as you can. It's not. You have to read the peg very, very well and have heavy but balanced tackle. And the regulars are tough to beat. And I'm far from in tune with the fishery at present, but enjoying the change and the quick thinking required. I love that. And the immediate response or not response is what I like as well. You learn so much quite quickly. I'm making a few mistakes if I'm honest, but I'm enjoying it. So first mistake is not bringing any 4mm hard pellets. I forgot how they can bring those cart back on that short line. And where we're just putting in those sixes, I think when I'm not fishing it, flicking a few fours in there, as I say, it does bring them back quicker. If I was using fours, I'd only throw them in if I was fishing that short line when I've hooked a fish to save, because they could come up for those fours. So I'd hook a fish, throw the fours in, play the fish out, land it, put my rig back in, put sixes on the float, hook another one, repeat the process. And schoolboy error number two is I should have put a line in between the two pellet lines. I did think about this at the start, but I sort of decided if I put one in just past my short line, I could sort of make them back off even more. But I'm realising now I probably should have because 12 inches between my two depths is too much. It should have been 6 inches. So if I'm fishing, say, 3 foot in front and then 4 foot out, I need a 3.5 foot line in between on the shelf. So already, I'll be honest, I'm sort of thinking, want to come back and do better. Not necessarily catch more fish because I might not draw as well or different conditions or whatever, but just to do it all a little bit better already. I'm sort of thinking I want to come back. Now the peg we're on today, 49, is a good peg. And if every peg was in or you had sort of 20 on the lake, I'd be well happy with that because it has an advantage. It's an M peg and you're on the end of the spit. But today, to be honest, there's a limited amount of people fishing because Ash Lake isn't that big to hold the other half of the pairs, if that makes sense. So peg 50 on my right is in. So this peg isn't really a massive advantage, if that makes sense. Everybody's got loads of room, whereas this peg normally, if you had every peg in, would have loads of room. So it would have been a bigger advantage if there was a lot of people. But it's fine. It's a nice little match. And a good practice for me and a good little stepping stone to come back over.
ideal. Now we fished between these first two lines for about 2.5 hours, and then it did get progressively slower. So we do go down the edge, and I'm going to cut the rest of this fishing in front now to go down the edge. But we did swap between these two lines for quite a bit. Probably half the match, as I say, 2.5 hours. So we go down the edge with a medium-sized cab pot, and I'm using Blake's commercial Po mix and a piece of meat on the hook. I like meat. It's quicker than putting on 5 or 6 maggots. I've got dead maggots as well if I need them. And it's exactly the same elastic, exactly the same kit and everything apart from the elastic. The elastic is the Red Hollow Keep Nets Direct, which I really like. It's quite forgiving, yet quite powerful. So just sort of working that elastic out at the minute, do I need to use the puller on certain size fish or not? Probably not, looking how low that sort of top kit was then. So schoolboy error number 3, I feel we should have brought some micros, as this may have brought a few bigger fish into that edge peg. Um, and we could have used sort of 50-50 with the ground bait. Or now and then we could have tried just neat micro. Neat micro will catch bigger fish at times. So we're learning lots, aren't we? So we continue to catch a few down the edge. I'm quite enjoying myself. Woeful bit of net in there. But I feel a percentage of what we're catching down the edge is definitely a little bit bigger, especially in comparison to the ones we caught in our deeper, further, longer pellet line, if you like. They were definitely small, weren't they, in that deeper water? I mean, you'd expect that, wouldn't you? Bigger fish down the edge. So the depth, another section along the margin on the left, is exactly the same depth as where we're fishing. But I feel I drag too many fish into the peg when I fish that long. So we're just fishing a top kit and a short four, and I've got the option of pushing that number five out if I want to. I really only want to bring two, maybe three fish into the peg at a time so I can get a nice clean bite. Too many fish in the peg, too much activity, too many foul hookers. Night catching by cab potting, ground bait twice in a row, and then I go with just a bit of meat in the cab pot, not much, sort of seven or eight little pieces, and obviously one on the hook. And then the activity doesn't get too much. I find if I, even with that medium cab pot, if I put ground bait in every time, I'm just getting one or two too many fish in there, and they're sort of, I don't want them sucking the bank and tailing up and going a little bit nuts in there. So just crab potting twice, then meat the third time seems to be working quite well. And every now and then I drop in there with doing nothing apart from a bit of bait on the hook. I do that every sort of six or seven drop ins, and that works for a fish as well. Some of these are better sized carp are pulling a little bit now as well. They're good fun. I find I can catch about three or four fish quite quickly down the edge, and then I sort of just waiting a little bit longer than I want to be for a bite. So by flicking in front for 5 minutes and catching one there on the meat, I find, and then going back down the edge, I get another little run. So it's good. The weather is very interchangeable as well, isn't it? 1 minute the sun's right out, it's gone all flat and sunny again. Now look, Next minute it's cloudy and breezy. So we've still nearly filled now our fourth net, but I only tend to put about between 45 and £50 a net. So we got getting on for £200, I'd have said now. Of course, if you can catch them straight out in front on that pellet, it's always the better option, of course, because even if they're a little bit bigger down the edge, you're having to fill a cab pot. Ground bait's that little bit messier. Whereas in front, pellets, you're just throwing them to the top, aren't you? To the top kit. It's a lot quicker, a lot leaner. So we're going to skip now to the last part of the match.
Wow, what a day. Quite enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed watching it. We've ended up with £307, which was third on the cart plate. There was Simon down in the corner on 53. Down his right hand edge was solid, he told me. It went solid halfway through the match and he had £370. And so we needed another £63 to come second because it was one off the roadside. And I want to say peg 58, but it might have been 57, sort of around that area. Young lad who comes here a lot, very good angler. Hopefully his name will come up here and I'll have found out by the time I've made this video. So apologies, I can't remember his name. But he's had just over 400, I think about £420, so fair play to him. He had sort of duplicate rigs and that for his inside in front of him. And he knew the score really, didn't he? He knew how to feed. He knew he'd need duplicate rigs just because of the sheer pressure on those rigs catching those sorts of weights. I've not been here for 3 years, so I was happy enough with £307. Really enjoyed it. Mark, being Mark, has done what he does best, and he's gone in one ash lake. So we got a first and a third, but I think that only puts us second overall. I think the young man who won our lake with 400 odd pounds was partnered with Tony Gilbert, who we fish with in the teams of in the Winter League teams of 5, and I think he was second to Mark on Ash Lake. So I think they pipped us by a point. So we were second overall. So I'll take that. As I say, not been over for a long time. Really enjoyed it. I'd highly recommend it for anybody. I think Todber's had a lot of sort of. I will just say briefly that I think they've had a lot of stick about the weights and all that, and some fish have been obviously taken out now, so the weights have dropped a bit. But for me, I think it's great because I think for anybody wanting to test some hooks, elastics, any new kit, come over here and fish a match because you will put it through its paces and you will know how good it is. And not only that, when you make intricate little changes in your match, you get a reaction fairly quickly or not a reaction. So I just think the potential of learning within a match is massive. There's little things I've done today where I know I've sat there too long. I sort of sat 7-8 minutes and not had a bite and thought, right, I've sat here too long. But so then I'll change so I've been off the pace, but then I'll change the feeding slightly, and then I'll catch again 3 or 4 fish, and then you change something. And if you put that into your normal fishing, say, because this is quite out of the ordinary, isn't it, Todber? But if you put that into your ordinary fishing, I just think you can learn a lot. So get over and have a go. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Thank